Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 1, I guess, of the HooperCast. My name is Connor Dempsey. I am your host. You should know that once again, because the only place you could be listening to this would be on my blog. A quick sidebar, I think the word blog it completely degrades any credibility from anything. I may have mentioned this in the last episode, or the first episode, or the 0th episode, the premiere episode of the podcast, but I just feel like whenever it says, yeah, it's on my blog, you just go look at it, you instantly, people are like, oh, I'm not going to go look at that thing that you want me to look at. But, look, there's no other name for it, it's a blog, so I would call it a website, but it's not, and that would make me a liar instead of just a nerd, so I'd rather be nerdy than just a liar. So anyway, the first episode, it's, Thursday, November 17th, so maybe this will go up today, maybe it won't. It depends on what I feel like doing, so, yeah. It's going to take me a little while to figure out how far away to put the mic from my face and how loud to speak, and if I should move to a room that's smaller and maybe not shout so much, because I feel like if I move too far back, you can't really hear me, but if I'm too close to the mic, then I'm way too close to the mic. So, it's going to take me a little bit to figure out what sound thing is best and what I want. I wish I had a better mic that had like a pop guard so that that wouldn't be happening so much. But I don't, and honestly one of my rules with this thing is just to not really spend money on it right now because I don't make money from the podcast, and to be honest, it's just kind of a goofy hobby. I shouldn't be putting money into it right now. So I'm sorry if the sound quality is not to your liking. Just try and deal with it. But basically, I'm gonna review a movie, and it's gonna be. And again, I'm finding my footing here with the format of this thing. I'm just doing this for fun. I have a little bit of time to kill while my laundry's getting done, so I'm gonna go ahead and review this movie. But it's gonna take me a little bit to figure out how I want to do this. So just bear with me as much as you can. Also, I'm going to set up some rules real quick for the podcast. I thought a lot about this when I was making this thing, like, okay, people curse, that's what they do, alright? So, but you don't curse around family members or at public functions, unless your family's just into cursing, and hey, whatever, you can tell your, grandpa to, shove it right up his ass, hey, why not? But I don't do that, so, I'm not going to, like, be vulgar around my family members, but I'm also not going to, like, assume that family members of mine don't also live in the real world and have heard other people cursing. But I don't want to be a source of myself. So that being said, but I feel stifled sometimes when I'm told I can't. So my whole policy with this podcast is going to be I will allow myself to curse as much as the movie. I'll give myself a rating system. So, if I'm reviewing a PG movie, I will curse as much as a PG rating allows me to. I think you can say, like, damn, or something. That's about it. If I'm doing a PG-13 movie, I can say basically anything, except except I get one non-sexual F word, which I'll allow myself in the podcast. Maybe, but if I'm reviewing an R-rated movie, look, if you're listening to this and you want to hear what I think about an R-rated movie, first of all, if you're going to go see an R-rated movie, you're going to be comfortable hearing the F word, and if you're not, you shouldn't be going to see that movie. Ipso facto, you should not be okay with listening to this episode. So, for instance, tonight, I'm reviewing Piranha 3D. It's rated R, so I'm going to say the F word at some point. I'm sorry, I'll try not to be egregious with it. I might not say it, but I'm allowing myself the right to say it. That's my rules. I might talk, I'm going to mention things that are in the movie. I'm not going to try and censor an R-rated movie review, a review of an R-rated movie into a PG format for you. I'm sorry. So, I feel like that's fair. I'll put up a disclaimer that says, look, there's cursing, so don't listen to this if you don't want to hear it. I'll try not to be vulgar. I'm not going to talk about sex with, those kind of words. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be dirty, but I'm not going to over-censor myself either. I think that's fair. So that's a fair warning. For now, I'm going to introduce the podcast to you like this. So this is the HooperCast, and today I'm going to do an audio review of Piranha 3D.
Sam?
Something bit me.
Sam, what are you seeing down there?
Oh my God. piranha?
This particular piranha vanished 2 million years ago.
I'm thinking about closing the lake.
There's us, and there's 20,000 kids. You do the math.
Take it out!
The sheriff has declared an emergency.
Don't worry, we got Pete over here! Piranha hunt in packs. The first bite draws blood. The blood draws the pack.
Alright, so that was a little bit from the trailer of Piranha 3D. So, basically, okay, so this movie, I don't know, I'm just going to go through some things about it before. I figured that one of the first things I'll do on the show is talk about what I know about the film going in, and my circumstances of seeing it. I rented this movie. I mainly saw it because I had friends see it who had talked about how ridiculous it was, and how it's not a good movie, but it's not one of those movies that tries to be good. It's like a B movie. And so I thought, okay, whatever. So I started this podcast, and then I thought, well, what should I review? And so I rented this movie and another one to watch specifically for reviewing for this podcast. So I thought, what better debut than Piranha 3D? So, speaking of Mr. Hooper, the first scene, basically, is of this man fishing in this lake, and it's played by Rick Dreyfuss, who played Matt Hooper. And the only reason I would say it's Mr. Hooper is not only did I hear it from other sources, but he's dressed like him. I think even with if I remember correctly, he's dressed in blue jean outfit, blue jeans and blue jean jacket, which is what Matt Hooper wore, including this skull capish sort of hat. And he's singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed." The thing that they sang in Jaws. So you're pretty much led to believe this is how Matt Hooper dies. Spoiler alert, whatever, for the first 5 minutes of the movie, because he's out fishing and then this crack in this fault line happens that basically opens up all these dormant prehistoric piranha, and they basically come out and create this big whirlpool that encapsulates his boat until it capsizes, and then they eat him. They chew him to death. So that's how Matt Hooper, one of the heroes of Jaws, really, spoiler alert, he lives. 30 years later, he's fishing, in a lake in Arizona and gets eaten by some piranha. So, whatever. As stupid as that is, it doesn't really matter. But basically, so that sets up that, there's this fisherman that's going missing. So, they basically, there's this cop, this sheriff, Julie Forrester, played by Elizabeth Shue, with her deputy, played by Ving Rhames. They hear okay, so they heard about this fisherman going missing. So they kind of go out and go to look for him, and they find his body. Oh, and so they're kind of analyzing what happened to his body. So while that's going on, her son Jake, played by this kid named Stephen R. McQueen, which I realize the only reason he doesn't use the name Steve McQueen is probably because of the Screen Actors Guild rules, where you can't have, they're for instance, Danny McBride. There's a writer out there, I think, whose name is Daniel R. McBride or something. I don't know. But you can't use the same names. Otherwise, this kid should totally go by Steve McQueen, and if he is anything short of a badass, he does not deserve his name. Jake really wants to go down there because the whole... Sorry, I'm so bad at... I'm sorry this is so disjointed. What's happening here is it's spring break in Lake Victoria, Arizona. And so, and this isn't one of those spring breaks that's a lot... Sorry, but this was not how spring break was to me. Maybe I hung out with, a different crowd. But this spring break is boobies and beer and boobies and boobies and boobies and nothing but women showing boobies, women in wet t-shirt contests, drinking beer, women having beer poured on their t-shirt, thus making it wet. You know, that sort of thing. Like the kind of spring break where if you had to like be somewhere else and your girlfriend said, "Oh, I'm gonna go to spring break," this is the kind of spring break you imagine in your head that you worry about. Like, oh, it's gonna be that kind where there's like raucous sex going on. It's a very heightened and frankly unrealistic version of what spring break is. At least, you know, as far as I can tell. Jake wants to be a part of this because he's like a 17-year-old kid. He's horny. He wants to be around the boobies and, you know, do body shots and all this stuff. He wants that sort of thing. So, and he's like a local, so there's all, you know, of course, everyone who comes to this island, you know, this lake community is a tourist, and he's, you know, they're all attractive, and he likes that. So he wants to be a part of that, and there's this chick, you know, Kelly, played by this girl, Jessica Shohr, Shazor, something. She's, you know, she's very good looking, and so he's kind of like he doesn't hook up with her. He hooks up with her in the sense of he sees her and talks to her, but he meets up with her and sort of like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm hanging out with Spring Break and have this, you know, dumbass DJ guy or whatever, just stupid jock that, you know, of course, that she's gonna hang out with at the beginning of the movie because that just is a source of conflict. So. But he has to babysit his siblings, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to be down there on spring break, so he like pays them, you know, to just sort of. I'm gonna try not to give away the whole plot, but I have to set up what's going on. He pays them basically just to stay in the house and not get in trouble. But of course they go on the boat, and then the boat like wrecks, and so they're trapped on an island, and that sets up why they're in the movie later on. He goes down to, you know, screw around or whatever, and he basically meets up with this guy named Derek Jones, played by Jerry O'Connell. If you don't know who he is, and you're listening to this podcast, then you don't know who any of these actors are that I just mentioned. You don't know who Elizabeth Shue is and Ving Rhames. But Jerry O'Connell is an extraordinary source of inspiration because he started as the fat kid in Stand By Me. He lost weight and became like pretty good looking, and then he married Rebecca Romaine. So by default, he's doing better than any of us. But Jerry O'Connell plays this completely over the top. Okay, on Wikipedia it says pornographer. I wouldn't say that. It depends. To me, pornography was like people having sex like on camera. But this is more like that Joe Francis guy who created Girls Gone Wild, where the girl, he just goes to like spring break spots and has, you know, basically gets girls drunk and entices them into like showing their boobs to the camera so that he can giggle and make, frankly, lots of money. So he's a Joe Francis type. So he runs into this guy, and so Derek Jones is like, you're a local, you could show me all the cool spots. And so somehow, it doesn't really matter how, him and Kelly get roped into going with this guy, and like 3, you know, voluptuous but stupid girls. He goes with them, and so what ends up happening is that basically sets up where everyone goes. So through the course of the movie, the Piranha attack, you know, the boat that, you know, the main characters are on, and the lake itself where the sheriff's people are. So basically the movie is this big like attack people sort of thing. You want to see a bunch of these dumbass kids getting drunk and just looking at boobs all day, and then when they start getting attacked, whatever. If you were to ask me, did I like this movie, yes or no, I would say no, not because it's necessarily bad. It's not my cup of tea. I know what it was trying to do. I understand that it's just a movie about people getting attacked by piranha, and how ridiculous is that, you know, but if you go through, there's nothing wrong, and look, if you're looking for that, then that's fine. It didn't satisfy me. And I didn't even have any expectations for it, but what I heard from everyone else was, it is just an awesome, awesome movie, and there's just some awesome kills. Look, movies like this, and any other horror movie, and Final Destination, as sick as it sounds, you watch it because you want to see interesting kills. And there's only so much piranha can do. It can eat you, you know. There's some interesting things to do. There's one where, like, the steel cable gets, like, cut, and so it whips around and cuts and like slashes through a couple people, and for a second this chick, she just goes ugh! And like her top is cut, so then like her top kind of falls over and like her boob pops out, but then like you realize that she got cut in half, and then like her front half slides off of her, you know, bottom half, and it's like, oh, and there's things where people are just getting their eyes pulled out, and this chick getting like her hair caught in a motor, and then having like the motor goes and her face gets ripped off. But it's kind of gratuitous. I don't know, a lot of gross out stuff. Like it's not bad. It's just maybe I thought it'd be awesome ridiculous, and it was just kind of like, oh, this will please only a smaller group of people ridiculous. I mean, now to be fair, that small group of people made this movie $83 million, so whatever, including myself who rented it. I'm adding to its, revenue. The movie's budget was $24 million. I guess that was mostly for, not for the stars. Really only the most famous person in this movie these days is probably Adam Scott, who plays one of the seismologists who's in the film. But yeah, this movie made almost $60 million profit. So I mean, anything I say against it doesn't matter. The movie has won. But look, it's fun. It's whatever. I'd rent it like me. I mean, I rented it from a DVD Express. I paid $1 for it. So I'm not sorry I rented it. It's cool to watch once maybe, but with the right group of people. And you know what? Part of it, I watched it by myself. I'm sure with the right people, it's a lot more fun. I was talking to my buddy Dustin, and he had watched it with our friend John. And John just loves these kind of movies that are just kind of ridiculous, and not to compartmentalize his interests, but he likes these kind of movies. And it must have been, and Dustin said it was fun to watch it with him because of the, just because it's just fun. Now, watching it by myself, and depending on how tired I am these days, it's not really fun to watch a ridiculous movie by yourself. So look, if you're going to watch it with friends, unless, you yourself are into this genre so much that you don't need, friends or human interaction, then hey, go for it. But me personally, I maybe would have enjoyed it better with friends, but at the same time, it's a one-off. I mean, it's nothing worth buying. I mean, I didn't see it in 3D, so I can't tell you about the 3D. Sorry, these are rental reviews, so, I mean, whatever. Granted, it's also a year late, so who am I really serving by this review anyway? But it's cool, whatever, but I'd rent it at most. It's not really worth buying. I think it's just worth renting, so whatever. But those are my thoughts on Piranha 3D. I'm sorry if most of this review was plot and not really my thoughts on it. I'm working on that. It's my first episode, so give me a chance, okay? I'm going to try and do more reviews. The next one I hope to do is the Change Up, so I will have a review up for that soon. I'm going to try and write more reviews, but it's harder just because you have to make it sound all good on paper, and it's just sometimes it's easier to just talk, go through it, edit out the dead space, and just put it up that way. And a little teaser, I don't want to spoil what I think of the Change Up, but with movies that I hate, it's usually easier to just speak it. So it's getting easier to say things these days and not write them. Alright, people, well, look, if you listened all the way through, God bless you. And not God bless you like you just sneezed. God bless you for supporting me, even if you just did it because I'm your friend. I appreciate it. So, please keep listening. I hope to make these more entertaining. I'm just getting started. So, look, if you want to leave me feedback too, on the blog post, do feedback. You can even tell me, Carter, you suck. I don't care. That's fine. Leave me your name so that I know that, if you're joking or if you're, seriously criticizing me. But suggest to me ways that I can make this thing better, because this is really for me. But if I'm going to have any sort of listening, even a small listener base, it would benefit me to know what is not working about the podcast, what is, what isn't. And I would take lots of suggestions. So please, don't be shy. Tell me what you think about this. Let me know what I'm doing wrong or right. I really want to know. I put out a little post on Facebook that I was taking questions about this, podcast episode. I should have put it up sooner. I put it up 8 minutes ago. I'm almost done with the episode, so I probably should have put it up an hour ago. Anyway, well, thank you guys for listening. I hope to do a lot more of these. What's the beauty of it is there's always going to be movies to review, so I'll never run out of material. Even if they shut down the entire industry, I would just review movies I owned. So it's really the purpose of this thing is really more to get you watching things that maybe you wouldn't want to watch. You hearing someone else agree with you about how bad a movie is, or me telling you movies that just my thoughts. So I mean, I've always wanted to critique movies, and I want to do it well, and I want to articulate my thoughts, and it's a way for me to grow in that area. So thank you for supporting that. Thank you for listening. Again, please leave your comments. I'd really appreciate it. I must comment that the only person who sent me in a question in time was my brother, who asked me, what is it about? It literally is just about prehistoric piranha attacking a lake community in Arizona, and basically just about showing people getting attacked by piranha. It's really nothing special. I did forget to mention one thing. The most marvelous, meaning that of Marvel that only marvelous thing that was in the movie was seeing Elizabeth Shue and Christopher Lloyd in the same scene, because if you know your movie history, you know that Christopher Lloyd played Doc Brown in Back to the Future, which he is essentially just playing here in this movie. And Elizabeth Shue was Jennifer, Marty's girlfriend, I think in the first movie. I think it was her, and then she had to drop out for some reason, so they hired the other chick. But at the end of the first movie, he's like, Marty, there's the future, your kids are all fucked up, you gotta see this, Marty. And she's like, what's going on? Whatever. Anyway, thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. I'm going to do more of these, so if you like it, let me know. Give me positive and negative feedback. I want to hear all of it. Thanks. I'll also add for Keel Yulberg, he asked, how was Christopher Lloyd? I just mentioned that he was fantastic, but he's in the movie for one scene. He literally is just there to explain the Piranha, so if that alone is worth it to see, then I would suggest YouTubing that scene rather than renting the movie, to be honest, because he's in it for one scene. And really, you can do just as good as seeing his part in this movie as you could to imagine what if Doc Brown studied prehistoric piranha. And that's basically what you get from Christopher Lloyd in this movie. So, I think I'm going to cap off my listener section now. So I have one more listener question, and it is also from Keel. And it was, How do they explain life forms surviving in a sealed space without replenishing their food source, oxygen, light, and warmth? As I remember correctly, light, oxygen, and warmth had nothing to do with it. Warmth, I don't think, was essential to their survival as long as they weren't too cold. Light, I think, had zero to do with it. Oxygen, they were in water the entire time, so I guess they had an everlasting source of oxygen. It's a really thin scientific explanation. Food source, they explained that they ate each other. They were cannibalistic, but they were completely reproductive and also, I guess, cannibalistic, so they reproduced, they had offspring, but they got hungry and they ate each other, and that's how they explained them surviving, I guess, over, a millennia, or whatever it is, prehistoric piranha. I don't know when they originated, when they end up nowadays, but they ate each other is the main answer, so that's how they survived. Anyway, that's all the questions I think I have, so thank you guys for listening, and please keep listening. Thanks.